Hi there, it's Polly here with Mr. Snoots. Yay! And tea, because it's that time again. Tea in an egg cup, I guess. So someone has asked me about games clubs, games groups, how to create a sense of community within games groups and games clubs. So, okay, it's an interesting question, particularly since I've just kind of staggered out of a masterclass in how to destroy a community. And in fact, I've seen that happen a couple of times. So, many gamers are outsiders, and we love our communities. When we find our communities, our place, they are very precious to us. And so, how do we turn something from just a place where people get together to a community? And indeed, why would we? Well, community and belonging is enrichment. Gaming is a social activity, and if that social activity creates bonds of friendship and enriches lives, then indeed it has moved onwards and become more than just a pastime. It's become a beautiful thing. So yeah, creating communities are, very important within the games world. So what creates a community? Well, at its baseline is trust and comradeship, tradition and endeavour. So in no particular order, so comradeship is very important. Now, a part of that, and we've discussed this on this channel before, is making sure that the people who turn up are comfortable. In a games club way, we make sure that newcomers that come into the game space are met by someone from the club, ideally from like committee or whatever kind of leadership, or just whoever seems to take a social lead in your group if it's more informal. But they are welcomed. That person from within the group introduces themselves so that this newcomer now has a name and a face that they can attach to, ask their name, and then find out what their interests are and introduce them to people who have the shared interests, so that that person now feels to have a friendship group beginning within that organisation. That is part of making them welcome. The next phase of that, of course, is to immediately ask them into a game. Run something, bring them into something. If it's miniatures, then hey, set up a game or subgeneral. Here's a cool board game we've just brought out. This is hilarious. You have to try it. Hey, do you want to take a character in this role-playing game? These are vitally important things of bringing someone into the group activity and show them that they are a part of that activity. So that incorporation of new people. On a longer term part of that comradeship is not shutting people out. It's making sure that people are always involved, that games and activities are not done in a way to exclude some people, that no one feels that they are being ostracized, no one feels that they are somehow excluded from games. That will shatter a group very quickly. If there are people that make other people feel uncomfortable due to their behaviour, and that's just not like a personal beef with someone. If you don't like someone, that's really between the two of you. Keep it outside of the club. Keep it outside of the group. You can be in organisations with people that you don't like, and you just have to limit your contact. If someone causes you a problem, if there's an argument that always breaks out when you sit down at a table with one particular person, don't sit down at a table with them. Find other activities with other people. It's not the group's problem. But if there is someone that's really bringing down the group with perpetual bad behaviour, if there's someone that turns up that really breaks the social contract of a group, or essentially just makes people feel so uncomfortable by their behaviour, if they will not correct this, if people can point out the behaviour and if it doesn't change, well, then you might have to ask them to leave. point in case in a group that I was involved with here. I've mentioned this before, but there was just a guy who was turning up who was rapey guy. He was playing role-playing games, and what he really wanted to do was rape the non-player characters. And this was just no, absolutely not. No, we can't have that. That's ooky behaviour. You've driven out all the women players. You've made the men players feel like really uncomfortable. It's just it's completely outside of the kind of the social contract. So comradeship is a social contract in that we're going to have to make sure that some people aren't particularly disruptive. But comradeship in a group can be created not only within the normal group activities. So if you are a games club that does miniatures or board games or role-playing games, people are involved in playing those. But social activities are very, very important as well. They should be on your calendar. Keep track of special events in people's lives, be they marriages or what have you. Hell, even birthdays. And but make sure that there is some social aspect to the club, that you do like dinners together occasionally, you hit the pub together occasionally. So I had a martial arts group here. It was a very eclectic, old pre-war kendo school and everything, but pub jutsu was definitely a big part of it. Just every now and then we would turn up as a group, and sometimes you're not feeling it. You're kind of turning up and it's like, yeah, God, it's kind of a hot night and it's been a long week. You'd look at each other, we could train real hard tonight and feel it. Pub jutsu, off you would go. And it was just a social evening. You kind of abandon training for the night. You'd go and have a few drinks and some talks with everyone, and you'd talk about each other's lives and become more involved with one another as friends outside of the normal activities. And that bonding's really important. Vital. Those are just the things that brings a club to life. And it makes that club endure. There was a club that I helped to run in Melbourne, and it was a very old one, old for role-playing, or old for wargaming clubs anyway. It had been going in one form or another since the 70s. It had started off as a club that met in the back of a hobby store, and as the hobby store finally, like, the guy retired and disappeared, the club itself continued going on in one iteration or another, with some key members continuing to sort of fly the flag and carry the traditions forward. This community was so valuable to the people within it that when the people actually put the club in their wills. So we had members, sadly, that died, but they willed things like their collections of miniatures and terrain to the club because they wanted to think that the things that they had made, the armies and models that had been so important to them, would continue to give joy to people in the club forever. And in playing with those, we would remember them and they would always be a part of us. And I loved that. And it was also great too, because when new players came in, I really want to try this or that. Well, we have entire armies here to bring out here. Do you want to play Romans in this game or something? Here are Frank's Romans. Here they are. So these are kind of, and we, in many ways, we tell a story. These were left here for new players. They're for you. They're for you to play when you come here. When you want to build stuff of your own, by all means. But there's always, loner armies here. That was a beautiful tradition. They would leave their books, their rule sets and so on. So the club had a library, not just a living library of games everyone's currently playing, great reference, you can sit there and read the rules, but also, historical, here's this guy's books, we remember them. So that kind of rolls over into traditions. Things that you do that become like a tradition of the group. Pub jutsu. Remembering past players. saluting the empty chairs, these sorts of things, they are also valuable bonds. Hey, why do you think militaries march around and wave flags so much? It's completely useless, except it's a bonding exercise. So having things like clubs that regularly have, a regular get-together that they do, these are kind of important. But a really nice thing for clubs, and something that we used to do, was rolls into the endeavour, where we would put together essentially micro conventions. The club would host a convention. You'd invite other clubs in the region in, and you guys are hosting it for everyone. So you're the DMs, the umpires, this sort of stuff. Everyone else comes in. Your club has prepared everything, and it was a great way to get to know everyone in other clubs. And it became a tradition. We're doing this like twice a year. We're putting on one of these, or once a year we're putting on one of these. Effort went into it, but people were really hurling themselves into putting the effort in, because we're kind of showcasing what we can do and what a great bunch of people we are. So shared endeavour is very bonding, and again, bonds community doth make. Intermingled with all that, of course, is trust, and there is where things can fail. Trust means that you can rely on people when you have to, and we're not saying every club member has to be there to help everyone move house or carry the couch. But trust in big things and little things is important. So, for instance, if there are shared endeavours, like a mini convention or something is being run, something that will break a club instantly, if it's found that the organiser, for instance, is using that for personal profit, and that people are paying to get into this thing, and that money's not going into like club coffers to cover facility rent, or buying shared resources like the club's terrain library or figure library or library. Instead this person's using it to buy whiskey and hats. Finding that someone's been doing a number on your back and profiting off the labour that you've been giving goodwill for the group, that will break a club instantly. And I've seen this happen, and indeed I've just seen this happen. Trust. And a big part of trust too is not withdrawing friendships that have been established and offered, and knowing that people will not let their own personal tragedies and so on extend into clubs. I had a role-playing group shatter simply because two guys were rival for the one girl, and these guys brought their personal feud into the game tables, and games just devolved first off into these two people bitterly trying to destroy each other's characters and so on, but then finally into these two like raging at themselves, raging at one another inside an actual game meet. And you get sort of okay guys, you can't do this, but they're trying to divide a line. Well, who's with me and who's with this one, because there's two sides to this argument, you've got to choose where you are. It's like, dudes, I know nothing about your romantic involvements, and in fact that's kind of getting into the TMI range, but asking people, insisting that people back you or not, particularly on something they have no knowledge or involvement of, that's pretty divisive right there. So trust can be a delicate thing, and the main thing about trust is just pure openness. Approach people with purity in your friendship, purity in your intent, an innocent intention not to exploit others, and to speak the truth to those around you. That's a fantastic basis for trust right there. Sometimes things go awry, like my original role-playing games group. I still stand, and indeed I have one or two viewers who were members of that group long ago, back in the 70s. Life split everyone apart because, teenagers end up in, jobs in far cities and far countries, and, we were pulled apart by life eventually. However, the club goes on. Some of the club assets that were kind of as people left, often they left assets in my hands. They are still here. One of the club members visited me long ago, and not that long ago, but he wandered around, and I told him, I still have all your books here. Here they are. Why? He says, because you told me to look after them for you. They're here for if you ever come back. They were part of our shared assets. We clubbed in and got books, and I can afford the core rules. I can't afford the supplements. Okay, well, I'll buy the supplements, and we'll all have them here to play with. So, life is life. But there are some groups in Melbourne, like League of Ancients and so on, that were running in the 70s and are still going strong now. And some of the people I knew back there, they're still there, because those, big clubs, big membership, and still have their shared traditions. They still put on their tournaments and so on that they do. They thrive. People will fight to keep them open. Masterclasses that I've had recently in the destruction of groups. Role-playing groups that have like some toxicities hidden inside them, so that they start excluding members, particularly talking down to female members and just making those female members feel so uncomfortable that they end up leaving. Same group also, like, there was a lot of kind of right-wing toxicity in it, as they found that, of course, some of these female members were also very keen on local Australian native rights, and so on. They started shouting and raging at them in public, and of course that person's never going to be there again. It's not a safe space. I've lost trust. I cannot be in this space and trust that I'm safe. Once trust is gone, the whole edifice collapses irrevocably. Doomed, completely doomed. The other one I've just had happen is a dance group that I was in. I've just seen a masterclass in destruction of community in that one, where all those boxes were ticked. Like, it turns out that some communal endeavours were being used for private profit. That a lot of mistruths were being told, and that there were some other toxicities at work that were making people feel it was no longer a safe space, and so on. Trust very important. Building trust, those shared endeavours, I really do encourage, like little groups of like half a dozen of your friends playing together. Just get out and do something, or try running a big game for some people from other groups. Bring them in. If you have a larger group, like if you have established a little club and so on, I highly recommend the idea of cooking up a tournament day. Just use the regular facilities that you use, but accept the fact that for that day, most of you are going to be stepping into the role as hosts and hostesses. So you will be umpiring games, organising tournaments, DMing, whatever. Although certainly many of you members might be playing, but your main role will be hosting, and you'll be bringing other people in. And by all means, make sure there's a social aspect to that too. There's going to be a barbecue or whatever involved, because communities build best when you bring in a broader community and fellowship. Get to know the other clubs around you, and you're all friends. You all share the same insanity. So find out what everyone else is playing. Say hi to them. Sit down with them. Make some new friends. That broadening of community is very important. The games clubs in my life have been very precious to me. The first one I joined was another group that was in the back of a hobby store, and that rolled over to become that original role-playing group and gaming group that I was with. And as I said, in my own way, that club still lives today, because in the 50 years since I first attended that club, it has never stopped having a club member, me, play. Every Saturday somehow, somewhere in the world, I will be playing still. And I will be remembering those people and remembering those dice we rolled, remembering those first amazing Dungeons and Dragons and Traveller and EPT games we played. Remembering that first guy I ever was in a role-playing game party with who had a character called You Bangy Bangy and would shout his roll his dice shouting You Bangy Bangy every time he rolled. These are, these are precious moments in time. And that community has always stayed with me, no matter what happened to the members, no matter where we scattered to. And in many ways, this channel is a celebration of a lot of that. I share their stories because those were golden moments and golden stories. Some of those people have gone now, but their stories live on. It's a noble goal to look at putting a club together. For those who are looking at putting one together, do not be discouraged by the hurdles. You're just going to have to split it into like smaller jobs first. The first one is looking for where you're going to play. If it's not in someone's house, just visiting people's house for a smaller group, you have to look for a public space to be, and there are solutions to that. Scout halls. We've had groups that meet in local dance studios, because sometimes during daytime weekends or whatever, often they're closed. They're just looking for some way of renting out that space. Masonic halls are for hire, and often they're desperate. Your local town hall will often have other town spaces that can be hired. School halls, all these sorts of things are all up there and available and usable. You don't need that much, really. You need a space to be, ideally some sort of toilet facilities, ideally somewhere to heat up a kettle or chill down a drink, and tables and chairs. So ask around and you can find it. It's easy online now. You can often look for hired space. Your initial ones, you might have to take a bit of a risk. If it is a space that requires you to hire it, you might have to have some money to cover hire yourself, in case not enough people sort of turn up to cover it initially. If you're in somewhere truly enlightened like Australia, odds are once you get established you can actually get little community grants for running clubs and societies. Your local council will actually start doing things like covering that rent for you. I wouldn't look for much like that in America, but who knows. Finding people, well, welcome to the internet. You just have to start putting the word out, and at local hobby shops and hobby gatherings and so on. The difference between a community group, like a club of like-minded souls, and something that is these pool hole things where you pay for a table and so on, is that if you're going and just paying for a table at a place that's just renting you the space, it isn't quite that sense of belonging that you get from a group of people that have decided amongst themselves to come together for that shared endeavour of being a community and running games. So that will always be better than just hiring space. Having your friends run a game is always going to be better than having a professional dungeon master turn up. Always. Because this is a social thing that we do, and being sociable is at its core. Every D&D game, every pair of guys rolling dice while playing Warhammer 40k, the game is sort of a conduit for social interaction between everyone. So anyway, those are my small thoughts. That shared endeavours, making some traditions together, both of those of course might involve doing things like social activities outside of the actual gaming and so on the club is doing, to foster that comradeship, which means just having a friendly environment where everyone feels safe and everyone feels welcomed. That welcoming is really important. Once that gets going, you have a group bond, you have a place everyone wants to be, everyone is proud and happy with that club. And of course the foundation of it all is that trust. Never break the trust. Never do it. Just don't. seeing those groups go down recently it's really hurt me. The one that just turned out to be physically unsafe it's a damn shame. Because it's like it would have been so easy to police behaviour and make it safe. For the other one that turned out to be somewhat hostile and exploitative, damn shame. Damn shame, because people's trust and love had gone into something, and it had been turned around and used. And in the end, no one really likes to feel that they've been kind of used, so that group will not survive. But the ones that do, wow, 50 years on, we're still rolling dice. We're still here. So anyway, for those of you putting clubs together, much love to you. You are the heart and soul of our hobby, and I salute you. And I hope to join you around a games table someday soon. Cheers, everyone. What's that? Oh, he wants to push the button. All right, he wants to push the button. That one there.